But thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm looking at some faces that we're in Israel together, and just loving the fact that we get to see each other again without me getting on an airplane. It's great to hear. But I just want to share just one idea that really shifted my thinking during this whole period of time. I think it was Joni who said in the beginning when I was listening in. Did I get that right? About how we always move forward. And I just want to share with you like just one idea. When I heard this, it really changed me. Back in the old days, I mean, last year, there was something called March Madness. Do you remember March Madness? Do you remember the good old days when the madness of March wasn't that the whole world shut down. It was that they gave us these brackets. And for the most part, we had no idea who was playing. Like, we don't really know Eastern Michigan, and now Gonzaga's popular, but for those who've been around for a while, it wasn't for many years. And like, you just sort of circle teams because like you're just looking for an upset, and then like something magical happens where like the team that you didn't know existed 2 weeks earlier, you're like screaming at the screen at the foul call because you're so upset, and like you just get overtaken by this world called March Madness. So as a basketball fan and a player for many years, that's what March used to be for me. And at the end, for those of you I'm looking at a crowd of people that I think are remember the days where you didn't get everything on YouTube. So if you remember March Madness a while back, they created this thing called One Shining Moment. Do you remember when they first did One Shining Moment is a song, One Shining Moment, that had the highlights of the entire March Madness. And it was awesome because March Madness is awesome. The heart, the game-winning shots. And I looked forward to it all year long. And now you get it on YouTube the next morning, so you can go to bed if you don't love the national game. But back in the old days, I mean like 10 years ago, like there were before, or whatever, YouTube, you had to wait. It was playing on Channel 4. So like you only saw it after you saw them cutting the net. So you had to wait up just to watch one for a minute, One Shining Moment. There was one shining moment that I'll never forget. And I don't remember the coach. I'll look for it. Maybe I'll send it on the clip. The coach is sitting around in probably a Cinderella team, and he's in the locker room, and he says the following. College games, I believe, are 40 minutes long. They're 20-minute halves. And all of a sudden, there's a clip that goes to him in the locker room, and it says, guys, if you give me 40 minutes, I promise you will have memories for the rest of your life. And it struck me. Just give me 40 minutes. Just dive on the floor and give me 1,000% just for 40 minutes. And those 40 minutes will impact you for the rest of your life. Don't leave anything on the bench. Don't look back and say, had I just played harder. There are times that it's practice. There are times where it's the off season, but you got to know when it's game time. I think we're living in the ultimate game time. This isn't practice. This isn't a fire drill. This is it. This is the real thing. These next few weeks are going to define who we are and who our kids are for years to come. Because with God's help, like a lot of things in life, we'll get through this. But who we become now will open doors in ways that we never fully appreciated. This is the game that we've been preparing for. As I heard in the behind the scenes football videos, which I watch a lot of, coach, the owner of the Cardinals, I forgot his name, was trying to motivate his staff before the draft. And he said that he saw some quote that says, challenge doesn't bring out character. He said, challenge doesn't make character. It reveals character. How does that work? How does challenge reveal character? And why are we in the game right now? So let me just give you one idea that I've been thinking about a lot. The rabbi alluded to it. So I spend a lot of times in the corporate world. I help build companies. I help manage companies. And when this thing first hit, at least for us in New York was really, in many cases, unfortunately, ground zero for this thing. I don't know your experience, but for the first few weeks of the virus, the streets were just filled with sirens. You woke up in the morning and you didn't hear cars. You heard sirens and garbage trucks because everyone was home or being rushed. I mean, it was like, forget about it. And the companies that I was working with were just spiraling out of control. And it was one particular night, and it was just so difficult. People were getting caught, and there's no end in sight, and no one knew what was going on. There's no visibility. And I was having a little bit of a moment, and a friend of mine said to me, wait, Charlie, this is how how growth happens. I said, how does how growth happens? And he sent me a page out of a Jewish book, one of my favorite Jewish books that I had forgotten to draw inspiration from. The book is called the Nesiva Shalom. It's written by a man, a great rabbi named the Slonim Rebbe. It's one of those books that you get, and it starts to bring you into a world of Judaism that is sweet and empowering. I don't know your experience, but when I grew up, I felt a lot of Judaism was, I'm not enough. God's usually disappointed in me. And then you find rabbis like the ones you have here that remind you that it's not about what you're not, it's really about who you can be. There are people like this. This is one of those Sfarim. These are one of the books that for me did it. And I had forgotten to pull it off my shelf and look for inspiration during these times. I'd forgotten what spirituality does during times of physical challenge. So I pulled it off my shelf because he showed me where it was. And I opened this page and I saw a statement that the rabbi wrote generations ago that hit me like a ton of bricks. Listen to what he says. He says, where does birth come from? How do you give birth to new ideas? How do you give birth to new opportunities? How does the world evolve? He says, if you would take a seed and hold it in your palm, you would have something small, but you'd have something. It was a seed. And it's something. It's not much, but it's something. And if you put that seed into the ground, and if you'd be watching it under the ground, you would see that you lost. A minute ago, you had at least a seed. And now, once you put it into the ground, the shell starts to fall off the seed. And it would seem to you with your naked eye that now that it's in the ground, I have lost. I'm going backwards. At least I had a seed. Now I have zero. He said, but only when the seed loses its shell does the seed have the ability to unleash something so much bigger than the shell, something that in Aramaic, I'll say in Aramaic and I'll translate it. In Aramaic, he calls the kusta dichiusa, which means the internal life force. When the shell starts to fall away, what happens is you don't have less, you have everything. You see, in the physical world, we respect things that are complete. It's the end of the semester. It's when the cabinet is built. It's when the house is finally done. What a physical eye does is it looks around for things and it goes, bottom line, when is it done? I don't respect it while it's in process. We respect the end of things, but the way a spiritual eye looks at things is that in the beginning of something, the thing contains all of its potential. The bris is a simcha. Why? Because when a baby is born, boy or girl, in that little baby is nestled all of its potential. The reason why a wedding is so happy, when you really should celebrate, and we do, it's funny because the wedding shouldn't be a big celebration. What we should celebrate is anniversaries later in life. As you hit milestones, your celebration should increase. But why are weddings so celebratory? Because what you're celebrating is the potential in that couple. The possibilities now are endless before the physical world comes and takes form. Spirituality plays on a different realm. And each and every one of us has two things that we grapple with. Each and every one of us, the reason why our eyes are open is because what's inside us, and we spoke about this for those with me in Israel, what's inside me and you is a life force from the creator of the universe. I speak to people all the time. They tell me, I'm this religious, I'm that religious. I know Hebrew, I don't Hebrew. I'm like, stop it. You have more spirituality inside you than you'll ever need for the rest of your life. It's built into the factory settings. You never have to become spiritual. You have to reveal spiritual. Because if your eyes are open, the reason why your eyes are open isn't because you're a new age Lego set that all your body parts click in and someone turns on the light switch. The reason why your eyes are open is because what's powering you is a piece of the divine. God is not up. You know where God is? He's in. That means me and you have a piece of God inside us. But guess what? We got to navigate this world. So God gives us an avatar called a body. And life is a game of perspective. Am I a body or do I have a body? And the body's limited. It ages. It has to be wherever it is. And the bodies around the people around me. My wife has a body, and my kids have bodies. And I've got walls that are physical, and this world is physical. And the game of the spiritual is the ability to look at the shells that are in our lives and see past the shells into their life force. That woman that's next to me isn't just a body called my wife. That's the spirituality that is a piece of my soul. Those aren't just children handed to me. Those are gifts entrusted to me. When I look at the world, I'm either seeing what it is physically, or I'm seeing its spiritual potential that is behind it. And most importantly, when I look at myself in the morning, am I a body, or do I have a body? There's something inside me that makes me more. And we've all felt it. Everyone has had that moment where you feel something that just feels qualitatively different than everything else. It's like when you give, giving should feel worse than taking, because when you give, you're losing. But somehow when you give, something happens that just feels qualitatively different than taking. There's something about when everybody comes together, when you hear stories of health workers and doctors, there's something that takes place inside us that just like tingles us. When you hear a story about that hospital crew that was dancing for that little girl, and you're like, what's going on? What's going on is that the realness of who you are is sort of coming out. Now watch how this works, and with this I'm done. When you live a life and what you see is shells, you have something in your hands, but that something really is just the thing that is holding in a life force that has unlimited potential. The potential has been congealed into the form of the shell. And when that seed hits the ground and you think, all I have now is nothing, what happens is you now open up a life force that can give birth to a tree that is much greater than that shell. When the physical world starts to shake around a little bit, what happens is, spiritually, the Islam Rebbe says, is that what you're experiencing is the shell is falling apart. And for some people, when their shells fall apart, it's panic. I feel comfortable around shells. I can put them in my hands. I know how it'll turn out. But for others, when those shells start to shake around, you know what that means? There's a new life being born. There's new potential coming to this world. There's new opportunities that I didn't know possible. I can connect to my loved ones in different ways, because back in the old days, 4 months ago, people seemed to be too busy for having a real conversation, but I can pick up the phone and talk to people in a way I can't otherwise. I had a lady call me. She's a grandmother. She lives in our community. She's got all her kids within 1 mile radius of each other. She goes, Charlie, I've never been so physically separated from my kids. I've never been so spiritually connected. We've been living parallel lives. I got a pool. They come in. I'm picking up shopping. We're talking about this and that. Now my kids call me every day. How you doing? How's it going? We're having conversations now. I never had them with my own children. I know people who are working for years. They're calling their clients and they're having conversations with them that are real. People that are deepening themselves, that are studying things for the first time. When the shell falls away, you either mourn the shell or you celebrate the new life force. Now, I'm not talking about real death. Now, this is that's a much deeper conversation. Everyone should be healthy and well. We should never see any more challenge physically. But where we are right now is an opportunity, if you're paying attention, to play a game that we will remember for years to come. If we look at this world right now and realize that the shell as we know it is shaking a little bit, and that can give birth to new opportunity that's always been there. My marriage, my kids, my family, my friends, my business, myself, my connection to God, it's always been there. But now there's an opportunity for that force to be unhinged by the shell around it. We could potentially use this time as a way to give birth to a tree that's so much greater than the seed that it was before. And my blessing to all of you is that we never miss a chance to grow. We never miss a chance to recognize that who I am at my core is so much more powerful and so much more resilient than anything around me. We adapt in ways that nobody can. And I'll tell you where I learned it from, and with this I'll end. So the rabbi sent me to the rabbi, but I tell you where I really learned it from. My children. I want to tell you a story that gave me so much joy. You know, there's a concept called nachas, which is what you give your, when your kids do something great. I want to show you one of my biggest nachas moments in this past period of time. So as you know, I've been using Zoom for like 6 years. Like, Zoom is not a new thing for people that are dealing with people from all over the world. My kids have been using Zoom for 5 minutes. Like, just 3 months ago, they were in school, and now they're all on Zoom. I have a 9-year-old son. He should live and be well. My 9-year-old son, a couple of weeks ago, was walking around my house in the middle of the day. I said, honey, what are you doing? He goes, nothing. Like, I busted him. I said, wait, it's 11:15. You have class. Why aren't you in class? And I see him getting nervous. I walk with him to the bedroom, which is now his new classroom. And I see on the screen that he's got the screen open, and it's the gallery view. Some of you may be looking at this in gallery. You see all the boxes. And I see his box with his name, and in there is him. I'm like, wait, how are you on the box? And I come closer, and I realize what my son did was he took a snapshot of himself like he was studying. He shut off his video, and he put it as his background. So now on his background is him pretending to study, and then he booked out. I don't think I've experienced that much joy in my children in so long. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. But your mom is here, and if I don't put you into class, I'm going to get in trouble. Like, this is nachas. And I'm sitting there for the rest of the day. I'm thinking to myself, I've been using Zoom for 6 years. All I know how to do is turn on and off the video and on and off the audio. That's the extent of it. My son's been using it for 5 minutes, and he's already outplaying his teachers. You know why? Because kids know that they're just a life force. The kids don't buy shells. The kid isn't like, I'm 9, Zoom is Zoom. Everything that a kid does. My girls are in Zoom. You can't even believe what's going on Zoom downstairs in my house. The parties. I'm like, girls, aren't you? They're kids. They have a curiosity. They know in their core that they're just beginning their lives. And whatever comes their way, they're just unleashing the life force into every new circumstance. And that's our job. We're not going back to normal. We're never going back to normal. There will never be normal. That's not how the world works. You don't go back to normal. You go forward to greatness. You don't go back from this virus. You go forward from this virus. And my blessing is that we should be like kids in that way, with the vigor and the excitement to see that when I see a shell falling apart, I can't imagine the life force that is unleashed within me and within everything around me to create a reality that I may not have been able to create before. Because if we put the time in now, these next 40 minutes, there's no questions we'll have memories for the rest of our lives. Thanks so much for the time. It's an honor to see you guys. I love you, rabbis. You're the best in the world. Hashem should bless all of you with everything should be good, and we should have the good fortune to do these awesome Zoom calls, hopefully in Israel together very, very soon. God bless you. I love you. Everything you're doing should be with success.
Thank you so much, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. That's amazing. Thank you for being with us.